This is a video for a gentleman that just recently asked me a question, and I hadn't thought about it for a long time. And it made sense to me now that I think about it, but he wanted to know what all these pesky hoses were for. All these little hoses that come off the carb, and he was not sure where they went or why. And I'd never done a video on that, so I want to go over it very quickly. Now, this is your stock 14mm carb from a stock Honda 50. Now on the top, now this is just one way of doing it, but usually your largest hose clamp will usually be your gas inlet. And then what it will have is at least one vent outlet. Now, the venting is for the float bowl, which is right here, and they all have at least one vent hose. They have to have that in order for the vacuum to work with the gas in the bowl itself. Now, there is also a couple other things that a carb may have. Now, if you look in the front of the carb right here, on the top, there's nothing on there. Okay, but if you look, and if you look on this 30mm on the top, you'll see a small rise right there. Okay, as we turn the carb over, you notice that small rise has a dimple in it. Now that dimple is if you want to drill into that and put in what we have in this 28mm carb, which is a vacuum inlet. Now remember, this is on the front of the carb. Okay, the vacuum inlet is usually not on the end, it's on the front. And I'll go over that in a minute. Someone has drilled this out and put a vacuum clamp on it. So, on a carb, you're generally going to find your fuel inlet, which is right here, and you're going to find at least one vent outlet for the float bowl. Now, this vent outlet cannot be clogged at all. It has to be you have to have a hose on it, preferably, because sometimes these will spit out gas, and that's why you see the hoses that come from your carb and they go all the way back down past your tire underneath, and they vent out there, because if you have any excess gas, that's where it goes instead of all over your bike or your motor. Now, on the bigger carbs, the theory holds exactly true. They should have a vent on this side and a vent on the other side. Now, on this one, the fuel inlet is right here. It has a big vent, or a big inlet. This is the vent for the right side, or let's say the right. Let me think. Well, one side anyway. Now the other vent is in an interesting place. The other vent is right down here on the bottom. Now why it's like that, it must be a new design. On all the older carburetors, if you look right down here on the bottom, this is not a vent. If there is a corresponding screw on the other side of the supposed vent, then it's not a vent. What this is a it is a fuel bowl emptying area, and what you do is you screw that screw out, and it allows the fuel to flow down the line into whatever pan, so that you don't make a mess when you take the carburetor off, or if you're going to store the carburetor over the winter or a long time, you want to drain the gas out of the bowl. Now this does not have a gas drain on it. what it has is, in order to get to the jets, it has a jet access area. So does this. The newer cards have a jet access area, but they don't have a, at least on these racing carbs, they do not have a fuel release on them. Now, on this 30 millimeter, we have an area on the front for a vacuum line and an area on the rear for the vacuum line. Now, this one doesn't have it, but this one does have it here. Now, I'll tell you why it's there. On a lot of these mopeds, there are two lines that come off the gas tank, or the fuel tank. One goes to the inlet, and one will go to the vacuum line. Now, this is for safety reasons, because the gas tank itself, if I can zoom in on this, it has a petcock right down here. I'll see if I can lift that up just a little bit. Let's see, where is it? It's right here. That petcock down there, if you will see, that silver disc thing has a large line coming off the top right there and a small line coming off the bottom. And that small line is a vacuum line. And what that does is, if the engine is running and creating a vacuum, then it will open the fuel tank to the fuel line. If the bike is shut off, or the bike is tipped over, or if the bike engine is not running, then the vacuum petcock closes to avoid gas or fuel being thrown all over the place or leaking, thereby causing a fire or another dangerous thing. So this is why these lines are here. And I hope that cleared up some of the why and what kind of lines are on these carburetors.